Hey y'all, welcome to the Moving with Millennials podcast with your favorite millennial realtors.
We are 4 top producing agents in the DFW area, and we are ready to share the good, bad, and the real life of real estate.
Whether you're thinking about getting into real estate, already an agent, or just curious about what your agent really does, join us.
Tune in every Wednesday to see what it's really like to be on this side of the transaction.
Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Moving with Millennials. Today we are talking about how we get paid.
Yeah. I mean, there ain't no day. Ain't no day like payday, right?
Okay, you can't keep doing these little songs and dances when you're not willing to then post them on Instagram. This funny dance.
I still owe you guys the hopping dance.
I even called you out on Insta for it. I was like,
she went missing that day on Insta.
she
was
did.
Like, I'm not posting
Radio
anything.
silence.
I've been, growing a human, so I've been a little
Well,
bit.
maybe Chandler
The
wants to feel
hoppity-hop
you do the bunny
doesn't
hop
look
too.
cute right now.
I'm sure it's not a very high hop either. It's like a
Not at all.
Maybe in truth.
Yeah.
I might, go into labor if I do that. So we're gonna talk about like kind of the nitty gritty on how we get paid, both as a listing agent and a buyer's agent. This is, I think, a great topic for agents who are people who are thinking about getting into real estate because they think we just make a bunch of money.
Yeah,
like
right.
Everyone's like, you guys make so much.
You're
like
so
all the
lucky.
things.
This market's amazing.
Yeah, this market's great. Yeah. We can go on, but like we want to give you guys kind of like the exact details on how we get paid and what we do with that money too sometimes. So let's start with what am I?
Okay.
If
Well, let's
you've
just.
if you've ever bought a house as a buyer, or
Can we start
can't
over?
talk.
I feel like
I
feel very
we
awkward.
are rolling with everyone's
we're
taking a
not.
deep
Oh my
breath.
gosh.
So, like, if you bought a house, you know that your agent has never asked you to
As a buyer.
So,
Okay,
'cause
pause. I'm just going to give you just a moment to breathe.
Do you guys need a second?
We'll
really
take
calm.
over
Jam
for a
down this.
second. Okay. So we're talking about commissions, obviously. And so we're mainly going to talk about on the buy side primarily and majority, but first we're going to talk about on the buy side. So if you've ever worked with an agent to purchase a property, you know that they have not asked you to pay their commission.
Correct.
I think that's what the two
Yes.
of you were trying to get to.
Yes.
We're just a little off today, but the seller typically pays both agents,
commissions.
the buyer's agent and the listing agent.
Yes.
Well, okay, let's back up even further on that. So as a listing agent, we get a listing. We go on a listing appointment.
Uh-huh.
We talk to the listing. We get the listing. We let them know. They ask us how much is the commission. So typically, which by the way, with NAR, National Association of Realtors, there's really not a standard like this is the percentage you have to charge or should charge or anything like that. Actually, as an agent, like commissions are like a big no-no topic to talk about because we can't, we can't regulate.
Yeah. So it's an antitrust law that we could not be breaking by setting a standard. So just know that your commission rate that you pay as a seller is always negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
Your agent can say this is what I charge for their service, but you can negotiate it. The agent still has the right to stand firm and say, well, I hear you, but I'm still standing firm on this. It's not that that's a required amount for all realtors. It just means that is what that agent specifically is requiring. We as agents can't band together and say that we all will definitely charge X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
That would be breaking antitrust laws.
And when you're on a listing appointment, I mean, as a seller or even as an agent, like the goal is to figure out like what are they getting for that commission, right? Like showing their value. So as a listing agent, you want to show your value. If you're going to be charging, some agents charge 7-8%, which, okay, great. But what are they getting extra for that commission? So make sure that you're obviously getting more service for the dollar.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so I think, it's just important to know that like you can always negotiate that, but your agent can also stand firm. I do think that there are also certain offices or brokerages can tell their agents you must charge this percentage. So if an agent tells you, again, not that this is a national average or this is what most agents charge, but if they tell you my office requires that I charge this percentage, that is not breaking any sort of antitrust law.
Yeah.
That's just like a required, because when we'll talk about like, where our money goes here in just like a little bit. That breakdown, but an office can require a certain amount. Yeah.
And agents we are commission based, and it does depend on what percentage depends on the home sales price. So how much we make depends on the sales price. And I know some agents, I don't think any of us do, will also charge an additional flat fee or maybe admin expenses, things like that. There are some agents that do that. Again, just something to talk to them about, and why are they charging that extra additional income or whatever, flat fee.
Percentage.
So, and then out of that, so typically, should we tell them what the typical amount is?
No. So
Okay.
we can just say that it's the percent that your listing agent. So the percentage that the listing agent and the seller agree upon, they typically take that amount and they cut it in half.
Right.
And the buyer's agent receives half of it and the listing agent receives half of it. So whatever the amount you agree, it typically is split in half.
Yes.
Typically split in half, but there is a percentage that I think is a common courtesy I know our brokerage requires that we, as a listing agent, give at least a certain percentage to a buyer's agent.
Correct.
We were just actually having this conversation on like splitting it and lowering a buyer's agent commission. And personally, from our brokerage, and most agents can agree with this, we just don't feel like that's right, especially in this market with how many buyers agents are doing so much more work right now with showings and offers and everything else. And it can really, I'm not saying that buyers agents I know I don't really pay attention to the commission I'm going to make. Like right off the bat, like I don't look at it and then determine if I'm going to show the house or not. Like that's not my goal. Most buyers agents, I mean, hopefully no buyer's agent does this, but most buyer's agents are going to show no matter what they're getting paid.
Right.
But definitely are some agents where maybe they're a little bit more picky on the house or something else, knowing that they're going to make a lesser commission. And I know that sounds bad, but like, I mean, think about it, you working for who you're working for, right? Like, are you...
They come to you and tell you, hey, for this week, we only want you to work, or we want you to work the same, but we're only going to pay you 2/3.
Yeah, we're going to only pay you 2/3. Are you going to work as hard that week? Probably not. So it's just, I mean, it is what it is. And we work hard for our commissions and...
Absolutely. And the amount of legal trouble that we keep you out of and protect you from as agents is really important, because we carry E&O insurance, but on top of that, we also know the disclosures and things like that to make sure that you're doing everything right so that really you're not sued either buy or sell and that we're not sued. So, I mean, I think that's a lot of it too, is that you have to really remember that we carry a lot of
legality
and a legal responsibility in a way to make sure that we're getting you through the transaction in the right way.
We do. And the way I also see our commissions is like, we have a lot of fallout. Like we have a lot of, because we only get paid when the house, literally a buyer or seller closes. Like there are literally times where we have shown 20 houses, we get them under contract, we get all the way up to a week before closing, and that buyer's not able to buy the house. And guess what? We don't make any money off that buyer.
And sometimes they can't now buy a house for a few years.
Correct.
So now you've worked for 8 weeks to get them into a home, and now you have done it for free.
And this buyer that I was working with them for like 6 months, 10 offers we submitted before getting under contract.
Which is probably how many houses you had to show.
Oh, I don't even know.
40, 50 houses maybe.
At least. And then a week before closing, financing falls through. So basically 6 months of free work.
Free work.
Didn't get paid.
And that happens.
It happens,
And so that's kind of why even the percentage we make or what we make, it kind of counterbalances itself. Because then you have ones where you put a house on the market, it's got multiple offers, you get, one weekend, it's smooth closing, 30 days later you get paid. Those are great, but that makes up for all the other ones that are not going to close and you spend a lot of time on, or even though all the questions, I can tell you right now, I get so many questions from like past clients and upcoming clients, like just wanting me to help them, advise them, and do things that don't ever turn into any other future business. But it's just, I do that because it's part of my job.
Right. I would also say too, like, it makes it sound like a lot of the work now is on the buyer's agent side because we're talking about how many offers and things like that. There is still a lot of work on the listing agent side. So it's not that like, okay, great, well, I'm going to just negotiate a lower amount than my agent wants and they can still pay the buyer's agent the full amount that they want to pay them, and the listing agent can just take less than they're used to. Well, the issue with that is the listing agent is still managing all those phone calls and questions to make sure that they get the best offer for you. Showings. They're managing, so making sure that all the showings are coming in, they're marketing your property, paying for photography, so there's still a lot on the listing agent side that they are going, it's a lot of work, and especially if you're in one of those properties, yeah, it may sound easy that you're getting a dozen offers or more, but to be able to present those dozen offers does take a lot of work to organize them. Yeah, it is a lot to get. I mean,
it's
those
very
spreadsheets.
tedious.
Yes. So
the net sheet.
Yeah, and kind of like, I'm not saying, well, I feel like our profession is on the same scale as like an attorney or, you know, some like a doctor or something like that. Like there's a specialty to what we do, right?
Yeah.
So just like attorneys and doctors, you're not just paying us for the 30, 45 days you're working with us. You're paying for the experience behind that we bring to the table, the how many years we've been in real estate, the professionalism, but also our experiences with dealing with certain situations. You're paying for that as well. So it's a specialty. It's not like you're just buying a quick end service and then we're done with you.
And especially, you know, again, for buyers, you're not paying for any of it. You know, you're getting that service basically for free. You're getting all the benefits. As a seller, you are paying those commissions, but again, you're getting an agent that will be accessible to you even after the transaction is closed sometimes and the issues come up. Like that agent's not suddenly going to be like, oh, I already got paid. I am done answering those questions. And most agents are not going to be that way. You know, so we're still accessible. We're still here for questions and answers. And when you call us 9 months later and you're like, where do I find that form that I needed for my taxes since I just closed? It's like, we're going to be able to help you and get that. So it's like you are getting more service than just that transaction period.
Well, that's why.
In our relationships with preferred vendors, I've had my clients call me and be like, hey, we need a roofer. Hey, we need this. Like, we're always on call after the transaction to help you seamlessly find people that we know, trust, and love and use too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's very rare to not like stay in touch with something always comes up after.
Well, and that's why I always call myself or tell my like clients, like, I want to be your realtor for life. Forever, like your lifelong realtor. Like, it's not like once I'm done with the transaction, you're done hearing from me. I'm going to be helping you with you. Now we're talking about protesting property taxes and homesteads and all that. Yeah, and I'm glad to look it up, evaluate, and see how I can help you save money on your home. I mean, it's not something like we're going to be selling or anything like that soon. So it's part of it. And also keep in mind that the seller does typically pay the commission out of the sales proceeds at closing. The way I kind of see this, though, is even though it does come off on the closing disclosure on the seller side, kind of the buyer's the one paying for it in reality. If you think about it, they're the one that's bringing the loan, that's bringing the money to close at that certain price.
Right.
So if you really want to think about it deeply, I kind of think that the buyers are paying for it because they're paying it kind of wrapped into that price.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That does.
And so,
in a way,
but yeah, I get it technically comes off of this closing disclosure side as well.
Yeah.
So,
do you want to talk about how our commission then is broken down?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So we get our commission on closing day. I think we've talked about that. But we have immediately put 25 to 30. I always put 30%
I do too.
away in
I do
savings.
1/3 exactly. I just like it automatically does it.
Just that way we have our taxes set aside because we're not W-2. So that. And then after that we have all of our office fees, admin, if you've paid for marketing.
If you have a transaction coordinator or an assistant that helps, like you said, an admin. So I mean, there's instantly before that, like as that money hits your bank account, it's already leaving to pay for other things like almost immediately.
Yeah,
a portion of it, a large portion of it, really, if you think about it.
When I go on a listing appointment and we talk about like commission gets brought up as an objective or something like that, the way I explain it, the percentage that I make, I immediately tell them, I immediately say, the way that it's broken down is typically, 1/3 of it goes to the government. I have to pay my taxes out of that. The other 1/3 of it goes towards my fees and my brokerage fees, my expenses to get your house on the market, my marketing expenses, things like that. The other 1/3 of it is how I make a living.
Right.
So really, ideally, that's kind of what I'm making.
Right.
So that one, and then also the other objective, like some people say, oh, well, this agent, they're going to charge less. And I'm like, okay, that's great, but let's think about it this way. So if me and this other agent are both 1099, he has to pay his, taxes as well. Hopefully he pays his taxes. Mm-hmm. That means he's already doing 1/3 of the commission is going to his taxes. He's also hoping he makes money, correct? Like he wants to make a living. Where do you think he's going to cut on those commissions? And it's probably going to be where he is marketing your home, at a cheaper rate. So that's where he's cutting, able to cut those commissions. So ideally, it's really not in your benefit to cut commission.
I like how you explained it, and the 1/3 goes towards the government. That middle third is kind of what I want to dig into, because we mentioned like office fees, and we just had kind of like other fees. We pay a fee to use the app for us to schedule appointments.
Mhm.
We pay a fee to be part of our MLS system. We pay fees for our lock boxes that are on your front door to make sure that you have secure access only from agents. And then, like you said, marketing fees, photography,
Licensing,
licensing,
keep our license
all
active,
of our
education fees.
So there's a lot of fees that go in there. The signs that go on your front door, on your front door. That would be so silly. In the yard, open house signs, if we have those.
Yep.
There's a lot of overhead and expense that's carried with each transaction that people just don't really think about. But you really have to see us not as like an agent. We are a small business. And so we have all of that. Even like, again, like I pay a certain fee to make sure that my books are being run. It's like, that's part of the cost of my business, So it's like, there's so many fees that we have to spend as a small business.
And as a small business with children, childcare.
Right.
I mean, there's just so many things that that goes into us. That takes away from that third that we are seeing as a profit.
Right.
I mean, those small business expenses really add up. I mean, you brought up some of them, but even like email, website, marketing, to market ourselves, not just to market our listings, but to market ourselves, keep us relevant.
To send out those email blasts. To send out those the email blasts about your property to every single agent in the MLS. They are so fantastic. If you're an agent listening, keep me on that list. Obviously we know how I feel about those. But, again, that's an expense. So I feel like that middle third is what people, they don't really see that.
Right.
They don't really understand what that, and we're calling it the middle third because once you add all of that, it really is almost a third of our money is not all. I mean, it really is a third of it that gets put towards all of that. Yeah, it's expensive to run a business.
And I think buyers, they think we don't have marketing expenses because we're not like on the listing side, but gas and tolls.
Gosh, don't even get me started on that.
And there is a marketing expense when I am making some sort of like marketing material and I'm sending that to every agent, like and or marketing directly to a neighborhood saying like, hey, I've got a buyer in your neighborhood, like. For buyers, we do market for you when times are tough like this. I mean, it's like, I feel like I'm like, what's the little character? Please, sir, can I have some more? I'm out there like begging for people to sell their house to you, and like I've been fortunate to have some off-market transactions this year, and it's like, there was still a cost to acquire that transaction. You know?
And if we broke it down, because I heard someone say this, like we don't work 40 hours a week. We definitely work more than that, probably 60 hours a week. Because if you're working like evenings and weekends and all that, our cost, if you were to break it down to an hourly salary, it's scary. Yes, it is. And so, but we still love it. Why?
Yeah.
Right.
It is still great.
Less stressful.
But that's the reality of like the commissions, and that's why we wanted to have a whole episode about this. Is it's not glamour, glitz and glam. We're making 100% of all the commission that you guys or that you see. We definitely have business expenses, like Jake was saying, and we've been talking about. But so that's kind of how it works. Anything else in the commissions?
No, I think that was good. And this is, primarily for other realtors. So I think it is. But it is good for people to know the reality.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think for consumers to understand that, like, I feel like there's perception, like selling Sunset, $1 Million Listing, New York,
HGTV.
LA, like all those shows, whatever, make it look. And honestly, those agents probably are like rolling in money because they're like, selling $50 million properties. Like, so it's like, of course, like so, on like, that.
Teachers like and pilots.
Right. So, so it's like, yes, but they're also making money from a TV show. So it's like, that's additional stream of income for them. So like I feel like that has kind of like warped perception for what an average agent works. And I would even say like we're not even like average agents, like we're all like high producing agents. And it's still, there is a cost to doing business. I feel like people just don't really acknowledge that or get it.
Sure. And if you're looking to get into real estate, you really do have to think of it, like you said, as a business. Like you are running yourself as a business. And so like when you come in and you get into real estate, I know there's so many new agents that come in and first of all, they spend their commission before they even make it. Mistake number one, do not ever spend your commission until after funding, not just closing day, funding. But they come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to make, X amount on the sell the price. And I'm like, yeah, but you do know you need to set aside some money for X,
taxes.
Y, and Z, taxes, but also how are you going to take that money and turn it into more business for you in the future? Because you don't just get paid and it's like, okay, like this is my, I'm going to go spend it all. Yeah, you need money to make more money. So.
And
Go ahead.
I think it's important to tell these people who are coming into real estate, like, your taxes don't count for 2 years. So, like, you're a small business, as, like, you can't apply for a loan for 2 years either. Like, so you need to save that money as much as you can, because 2 years later, you're going to want to be able to apply for loans. And
I feel like that's the most common, one of the most common mistakes I see when I meet with, like, newer agents. One, they don't know how their taxes work as a 1099. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
They're like, oh, no, they think they just pay, like, once a year. Sometimes I've had one agent, they're like, they don't take it out of our paychecks. I'm like, oh, sweet baby Jesus, let's walk over here. We're going to say a quick prayer, and then I'm going to walk you through this. Like, so they don't understand how their taxes work as a 1099, or they're so excited to get in the business, and I'm like, great, like, what is your business plan? Like, what are your goals? How are you going to plan? Like,
do you have money set aside now to get into business?
And what are your 4 pillars of, lead generation? Like, how do you plan on getting, like, and they have no concept of that. I'm like, you are a business. Every business has a mission statement, values, goals, how they're going to reach those goals, like all that. You should have that written down somewhere. It is your personal business Bible.
Get into real estate and all of a sudden people are like, oh, I'm looking to buy, sell tomorrow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
Great.
Well, and with a brand new agent, it's like your friends and family are going to know that you're brand new. So it's like they're not always going to be your first people that want to work with you. They want to see you get your sea legs first. So so that is commissions. So
101.
That's how we get paid.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Show me the money, honey.
If you have questions, message us on Instagram or comment in the stuff.
Yeah.
This is something that we'll be able to talk about with others if they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
we'll talk to y'all later.
Bye-bye. Bye.